Assalamu alaikum. So I had a question put to me today on Twitter about if there were any merits to fasting the month of Shawwal beyond the 6 days. And I don't know, I thought this would be a good time actually to address this idea of always looking for a specific shari'i thing. Not that that's a bad thing, right? So for instance, fasting 6 days in Shawwal is according to the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he recommends for us to fast 6 days out of this month. But what might be some of those other benefits? So, in terms of, hadith evidence or whatnot, no, there isn't a lot of specific evidence about anything in addition to it. And part of that can be taken from the fact that the Prophet ﷺ said what? That if one fasts 6 days from this month, from Shawwal, it's as if كأنه صمت دهر. It's as if that person has fasted for all time, like just in perpetuity, right? So in some ways, like, what more shari'i, right? What more evidential reason do you need to fast 6 days from Shawwal than the fact that one is going to be rewarded for just simply doing 6 days out of the year, 6 additional days from the month of Ramadan, 6 days in Shawwal, and you get the reward as if you've just fasted in perpetuity. So there might not be a lot of additional shari'i evidence, right? But then one of the things that I like to get us, at middle ground when we're teaching, when I do, especially my understanding Islam classes, we know that in Ramadan, from the injunction in the Quran where Allah Ta'ala has said what? Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, right? So fasting is maktubun alayna. It's something that we have to do it, right? It's mandatory, unless, you're sick or you have a health condition or you're traveling, right? But outside of that, it's something you got to do. Now, we still get a tremendous reward for it. But if we examine, for instance, the other times of the year that the Prophet ﷺ was inclined to want to fast, like Mondays and Thursdays, like the white days of the month, right? So if you try to get Muslims to fast any other time of the year, people are like, man, I did Ramadan, I'm good, right? And part of that is because sometimes we struggle with drawing closer to Allah through the nawafil or through the supererogatory works. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about fasting in Shawwal, those 6 days, but just fasting period, again, whether it's Monday and Thursday or the white days or both or some combination, is that it gets us out of the habit of always just like our relationship with Allah being based purely around having to be told what to do. Now, nobody misunderstand, right? When Allah Ta'ala gives a command, it's got to be done, right? وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, or sometimes even وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةَ. Sometimes into the command is for the group, sometimes the command is for the individual, but the need to establish prayer. There's no getting around the necessity of doing this. However, there's a certain kind of psychology, I think, that develops when we only do what we're commanded to do versus doing things out of love and devotion. And that, to me, is most certainly what days like, or those 6 days in Shawwal, they for me, they're very reminiscent of doing a thing out of love, and it creates a greater kind of spiritual maturity, right? So maybe not everybody watching this is a parent, but I'm a parent, right? Although I presume everybody watching this has been a child at some point. And the thing about parenting and being a child, right, is that, as a parent, you tell your kid to do things, and you kind of expect for them to get done because you're the parent, right? Tell your kid to do something. And children don't always understand why their parents tell them to do a thing. But as hopefully, if you're doing a halfway decent job as a parent, if you're doing a decent job and your kid is a decent kid, then hopefully one day your kid will take that upon themselves to want to do what you have been sort of telling them to do on their own, right? One day, you don't have to tell your kid to make up their bed or clean their room or any of those things, right? Hopefully one day, they just do it because they will come to see the value in cleaning up their room. Or maybe they never will. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, right? But the point being is that it's about a certain kind of maturation process. So while I cannot say that, there's definitely some sort of like sunnah recommended. Of course, again, there's Monday and Thursday. The Prophet ﷺ throughout the year was inclined to fast on, Mondays and Thursdays. He would fast the white days of the month. My concern is that we only look for textual issues, right? Versus getting something deeper from the text. I know some people will be very uncomfortable with this idea of, going beyond. Well, it's not about going beyond. It's just taking what is the spirit of that and cultivating an attitude towards Allah, towards Islam as a way of life that goes beyond the child that has to be told to do everything, versus the child now that sees value and takes ownership from those things that his or her parent has told them to do throughout the years, and now sees the wisdom and the value in that. So that's just, something I wanted to address. I thought, alhamdulillah, was a really good question and a good opportunity to talk about that. The class that I teach on Sundays here at the center, Understanding Islam, we try to go into, we start with maybe the textual proofs, or we start with the shari'i proofs or the things from the sunnah, and then we talk about them from a point of view that says, okay, well, what does Allah want from us beyond this, right? And for me also, I think a good measure, and I think it might have been Dr. Abdullah Ali from Lamppost, I'm not sure, but somebody close to me had said, one of the good measures, if you want to have a measure or some insight into what your Ramadan was like, what the efficacy of your Ramadan was like, and did it actually impact you, is will you carry any of it outside of the month of Ramadan? So I think a good litmus test or acid test for that is, can you bring yourself to fast outside the month of Ramadan, right? Because fasting isn't only about food and drink, right? It's about controlling your language, controlling your tongue, controlling your gaze, controlling your thoughts, right? It has all of these extra beneficial things that we can ask ourselves, what's my spiritual growth like? So, and again, in response to the question about is there anything specific about the benefits of Shawwal, one, given the chance to have the reward of perpetual fasting, I don't know how much more of a bargaining chip, right, Allah could give us than that. And then also just, can we get into the habit of doing things for Allah on our own that don't require the threat of hellfire, right? That's a good incentive, one that I take earnestly to heart too, right? As you know, as is the statement, al jannatu haq wan naru haq, right? The garden is real and the fire is real. But I think that if we want to really go beyond a child, like if we really want to grow beyond in some ways like a childlike relationship with Allah, is can we do something for Allah in which we're not mandated to do, but do so out of a sense of love? Because I think that also helps to give us an insight of, how do I think about my Lord? So inshallah, this is my little reflection about an-nawafil, the supererogatory, and specifically about that question related to the 6 days of Shawwal. May Allah bless you and give you the strength, the courage, and the fortitude to seek His pleasure at all times and opportunities, particularly when we're given the blessing of time and of health. I think also look at it, if you've been given the blessing of time and health, what will we do to capitalize upon that? Wa jazakum Allahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.